Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, December 13th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Quickly here, overnight markets had March corn down a penny at 442.5. March soybeans were down 6 at 997.25, and March Chicago wheat was down 3/4 at 557.75. This morning, we had export sales announcement of 200,000 metric tons of soybeans to unknown, and that was for 24. Good morning, guys. We made it to the end of the week here. Dustin, maybe a few thoughts as we look at the markets here this morning, a little weaker overnight, and then we'll throw it around the room here.
Yeah, good morning. Big thing, I think, is that March corn hit 450, which 451.25 is about the 200-day moving average. So that probably spurred some cash selling, we'd imagine. In fact, we saw some of the larger locations drop bases back a little bit as that happened. Like Decatur, Illinois, I think dropped a couple cents around that time. So I imagine that commercials are getting a little bit better flow with this better futures price. The other thing that we're also seeing too is the Brazilian real kind of had a pretty good sized jump the last couple of days. It's backed off a bit, but their central bank raised rates by another 1 percentage point, which is more than the average economist was expecting. So the market's viewing that as favorable. They're trying to get their inflation under control, and it's been in a free fall for the currency against the dollar in the last couple of months, and I think that's a lot of the back end weakness like we've been talking about. So those two things, we saw a break in the spread, and we saw, we're seeing some resistance at the front end of the market. So I'll be curious to see if that continues.
Very good. Ben, what's on your mind today as we wrap up the week?
Yeah, I think that we got enough done on the rally. Soon thereafter, even on the highs, we saw spreads start to move out, relax a little bit. I would like to start seeing some flash sales in corn. Typically, we might see them more likely to see them in January, February. I think we've kind of had our move here, and I think you're probably back to quiet holiday markets and maybe just a consolidation phase here for corn between, call it 35 and 48.
Yeah, very good. One last thing. We noticed Conab yesterday increased their estimate in the Brazilian bean crop up to 166.2. So that's about 12.5% higher than last year, 90% planted. And one interesting thing to note that another private group is their estimates up in like the 168 type area. So continue to see an uptick in prospects there for the soybean crop. Dustin, you're shaking your head. Maybe some thoughts?
Well, I find it really interesting that we're looking at this massive Brazilian crop number written down, right? And by all accounts, the weather supports that. But why July Nov is at 9 over still, right? Like just kind of a surprising thing, in my opinion. We have a large carryout in the U.S., and we're going to be fully competing with Brazil through that period of time. But yet the market is saying tightness. I think that goes back to, I think there's some component of the way the currencies are moving that are getting funds to be bull spreading right now. And we've seen that on COT report in corn, that they were the main sellers of corn for the last 3 months in the back end, Beach 25 and beyond. So as funds flipped out of their huge short positions, it appears that they're bull spreading at the same time. So just kind of just an interesting note when I hear a number that large out of Brazil, why is July Nov inverted?
Justin, is that kind of highlights that out of position trade that you talk about a lot, right? I mean, is that something that potentially down the road you could look at pretty closely?
Yeah, sometimes it's just order flow too. So it could just be general selling in the back end, and there's not enough buyers back there to offset that. I kind of think that's probably a big part of it versus just bull spreading. I think corn for sure, you've seen bull spreading. Beans, I think it could be more, tied to the real, just general selling because the flat price is so high that you could get, it can't take, if you sell 5,000 contracts in the back end, there's not a natural buyer that far out usually. So you can get those spreads out of whack. So I look at it more as just the overall bearishness of the bean complex. I think if you look at, the attitude going into next year is that we have too many acres of corn and beans combined, and which crop wants to give them up the most, versus trying to buy them. So I kind of think that's the issue. Just a general bearishness of, going forward. I don't necessarily agree with, I think, like we've talked about a lot, beans is probably the biggest risk to corn. So it kind of makes sense that new crop beans are a dog. I don't think it really says much to bullishness about July. I think it's just there's more, crush margins have been good. There's a natural buyer in a lot of those contracts because they can, put on the crush or, buy beans for export. Very few people are looking forward to, the 25 contract. So I would anticipate, to Dustin's point, once we get there, it's a different story. If the South American crop is proven, once we flip to where, they're doing most of the export demand, I would expect those spreads to be a pretty good carry. Unless something changes here on the demand side. But we're going to have a 500 bean carry out, looking at, a huge competition number from Brazil. So I would anticipate once we get there, that's a different story.
Oh, very good. Rylan, yesterday, strong start, weak finish in the cattle markets, and hogs are, surprisingly hanging in there, not really wanting to wash out. So why don't you give us a wrap on the livestock for the week?
Yeah, no, it was just a straight up kind of move right early in the day. And then I think naturally you run into some hedge pressure, you run into some profit taking towards the end of the week, but cash has been really firm. We saw 191 to 195 in some areas. The dressed sales were, up into the 305. Some even put the high side in Iowa at like 312. So we're really seeing packers come after it. And I definitely think the board has been pretty cognizant of this, just with the price action alone. Beef prices were up yesterday. We had choice up $4, select up to almost 2.5. So all the news is still really good. It just feels like you kind of ran into a little bit of a wall here, just just from a couple of those, just for some of those reasons. So overall, good market, but it feels like you priced in a lot of really good news here. On the hog side of things, we're just kind of sandwiched right now between the 20-day and the 50-day as far as hogs go. So December goes off the board today, and we are starting to see things starting to turn around a little bit. Cash is weak. We're down about $2 last night, actually under 80, and then carcass was just a little bit lower, and belly's down like $9. So definitely a little bit of weaker fundamental side on the hog side of things. So be looking to see how that shapes up. Plus we saw a little bit of liquidation, and the funds are carrying a massively long position. So I think that's the risk right now if we see more of that.
I appreciate that. Thanks for the update. It's Friday. It's always everybody's favorite time of the week for obvious reasons. And we've got a very special Fun Fact Friday here today. Brian passes the baton to Ben for today's Fun Fact Friday.
Yeah, and Brian, I appreciate you doing that. I think you do a tremendous job on that. But we're going to go ahead and get this started off just right today. This is the weekend of the Army-Navy game, one of the games that's played for the Commander-in-Chief Trophy between the service academies. So I thought I would share a little bit about that. The record for the all-time series is 62-55 in favor of Navy. The first game was played in 1890. The game was played at Soldier Field in 1926 to dedicate that field as kind of an opening. The biggest game historically was in the 1940s when the Army was number 1 and Navy was ranked number 2. But there's some traditions that go along with the game that I think make it a really special day. There will be a flyover. The choruses from both Army and Navy will gather to sing the national anthem before the game. The flyover, you can expect to see anything from F-35 fighters to Apache helicopters. That, to me, is one of the most inspiring parts of the game. There's also a prisoner exchange beforehand. They have an exchange between the academies where midshipmen will go to West Point and cadets will go to Navy, and before the game, they will have a prisoner exchange for each other where they get to return to their campus. They do this to build camaraderie and morale amongst the cadets and midshipmen. And the game itself, one of the big traditions is you want to sing second. After the game, each school will sing their alma mater, and the saying goes that everyone wants to sing second because the winning team gets to sing last. The singing of that song is to honor the fallen people from West Point, from the Naval Academy, and all the soldiers across the land. So it's a pretty special moment if you've never seen it. The location is a pretty interesting factoid as well. We mentioned Soldier Field. The only time the game has ever been played west of the Mississippi was in 1983 when they played at the Rose Bowl. Philadelphia has hosted more games than any other place due to its location, kind of midpoint between the Naval Academy and West Point, although it is being played in different locations around the Northeast on a regular basis. So that's kind of some of your basic things about the Army-Navy game. It's a pretty special day. And, I look forward to it every year. I think it epitomizes the greatness of our country. I'm going to try not to get choked up. It's a day when, I'm a humongous college football fan, and we get these people that are competing against one another in football. And at some point, they may rely on each other. So I said I wasn't going to do this. So I'm going to go back to the lefty part. It is, it's a special day. The pregame starts early. There's a lot of spirit videos from soldiers all over the world and naval people all over the world rooting on their team. And I think it's just it's a fantastic day. One of the oldest rivalries in all of sports, and it will hit you in the gut if you watch it, because it prepares these people to someday be teammates on a bigger field. And
yeah, very good, buddy. And they get their own weekend, which is so good.
Yeah, they get to celebrate it. It's a pretty awesome day. So in my Lee Corso moment here.
There we go. Nice.
Has your head gotten bigger?
It did a little bit better.
It shrank.
I'd like to say go Army, beat Navy.
There we go.
There you go.
All right, good job, Ben.
Attaboy, buddy. Way to take us into the weekend, buddy.
Yeah.
Brian, you got big shoes to fill now,
I
buddy.
hear you.
One of those hats, dude.
Very good. It is a great game. It is it's a lot of fun to watch, and thanks for some of those points, Ben. That's awesome stuff. With that, we'll wrap for the week. We appreciate everybody that tunes in on a daily basis. If you wouldn't mind, throw us a like or subscribe. It'll keep you up to speed on everything AgYield. We are doing this show live every day that the markets are open, streaming live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Thanks for the thoughts and comments there today, guys. It was a good show. Ben, awesome Fun Fact Friday. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
The War Room is proudly presented by AgYield. For over 50 years, the AgYield team has provided grain marketing and risk management solutions for growers across the country. Our veteran consultants harness cutting-edge technologies to pinpoint risk, optimize market performance, and protect your farm's profitability. Discover a new approach to farm revenue management at agyield.com.
Hey guys, Jack here. Be sure to support the show by hitting the like button, leaving us a comment, and subscribing to the channel for all the latest updates. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.